having been fairly close in location to Nancy Bush, I started doing some still lifes, some landscapes, even a portraiture, and I used her as kind of a critiquing medium, and did that for 3 or 4 times, and then figured, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing this myself. And before you knew it, I joined the West Hills Art League. I painted in oils from '91 until about 2003. And after that, I'd started a new job, bought a house, got a dog, and ended up painting walls in my house instead of canvases. So that break, I didn't come back to painting until maybe about 2014. And one of the first paintings I did was a rendition of my mom's childhood home that no longer is around. And I did it in secret, and I presented it to her on her birthday or Mother's Day or something like that. And it was such a heart-touching moment that I said, oh, this is going to be great. I need to learn how to do these better and better. And then, so anyway, that's kind of the beginnings of it. Now, in the house I moved into, I bought it with the understanding that I would set up a studio up with the northern lighted room, kitchenette of a duplex. And so I have everything up there, but I haven't painted up there at all. It's where I store everything, supplies and easels and canvases and finished products. I've found that I work better in my dining room in the corner right behind me here. And, it may seem really odd that I put myself in, I paint myself into a corner, if you want to say. But the reason why I do that, oops, we're getting some flashes here for, if I go dark, the computer's still got battery backup.
Okay.
But if I'm painting, one of the things that I learned from Nancy years ago was how to get more depth and more realism and other things like that from your paintings. And that is to use something like this, a little mirror. So years ago, I started learning how to do that. Like artists will do a little painting, then step away and do the thumb and whatever and get perspective. Well, if you take one of these little jobbies and you turn your head and you just look like that, you've actually set yourself away from your painting almost like 2 or 3 feet, it feels. So you get a different look, a different perspective. Different things will jump out at you, areas to work on, or areas that are looking better, and or just whatever. Well, this gets a little annoying after a while. So in the corner, and Debbie, I don't know if you can put the photo up now, but you can see how I've situated a large mirror right there at the corner. So I just turn to my right and I can see what I'm working on. The mirror I have right beside it with the picture hanging on it, that's just if I'm working on a really big or wide canvas so that I can get all of it in at once. But having that there allows me to do 2-3 hour sitting sessions, take a break, and then come back for 2 or 3 more hours, and I don't have to keep getting up and down and up and down and up and down. So there's a little technique for anybody if you have that type of a setup or are able to utilize mirrors. They've worked for me, but that's just one thing that helps for corrections, distance, etc. So
do I stop sharing that now, Lee?
yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
So for tonight, I can tell you, because Debbie said that a lot of people are normally interested in knowing, well, what sort of paints do you use, and what sort of brushes do you use, and what sort of canvases? I'll tell you what, I'm a bargain buyer, and if canvases are $6 for $12.99, I'll buy them or whatever. I like to find the ones that are primed that are as fine as possible. And if I can't find that, I will add extra gesso, 2 or 3 layers, sand it down. Sometimes that can give you a little funky texture. So if you're really going for the smoothness, just be careful on the sanding. But having that done obviously gives me as smooth a surface so I can get as fine a detail, because we all know the canvas ridges don't allow you to get that super fine detail. So as far as paints, I just took a quick rundown. We got the Liquid Tex, Artist Loft, Winsor Newton, Galleria, Gold Brand, Grumbacher, and Amsterdam. And I guarantee you all these were on sale when I bought them. As far as brushes go, I don't have very many large brushes. Most of mine are like the medium to micro size, and they get a lot of mileage. But Artist Loft, Princeton, Royal Langnickel, Art Echo, and that's pretty much it. So I'm not really anybody that says you have to have the fanciest, most expensive things, but also you can see if you buy the cheapest things, it's going to, hair bristles will come out, and the color will be a little too liquidy, and so I have a variety of things here, and it works for me. But so without further ado, I think we can kind of jump into at least the first one of the presentations.
Okay, which house do you want to start with?
Oh, geez. Well, let's start with the Hill House.
Okay.
And this is not the haunted Hill House for those that are into the scary Halloween stuff. This is a nice Hill House. Okay. So 2018, this is a house in Coraopolis. We grew up with a family. They were a church member with our family. And the father planted flowers and Helena, you're going to have to tell us what the flower is that you dig them up each year, and they grow like super tall. No, never mind. Anyway, he was an avid gardener, and my dad loved talk with them, so we had a very good friendship with them. Anyway, 2017, 2018, Mrs. Hill had to move out of the home. She was just unable to take care of it anymore. And her youngest daughter, approached me and said, "I'd like you to do a painting of this for us." And so I started taking some pictures of it, and she just said, "This is the one I want, the one on the left side." So I thought, okay, that doesn't look too difficult. Basic colors and everything like that. But I've got 2 houses on either side. I've got some depth. I got some porch furniture, all in shadow. And notice you got the awnings. You want those to kind of jump out at you. You want that top awning to jump out. So basically, it wasn't that difficult looking, but once I got into it, the challenges started facing me. So if we move to the first, for the next slide. What did I say? Next slide, please. Is that how they do it? There you go. All right. So basically, you start off just blocking in the main forms. I don't start off with any of these umbers or anything like that. I just get into it and just keep moving from that point. Otherwise, I'll mess up the coloration, I think. So this is just basically blocking it in. That doesn't take but a couple hours here or there. So we move on to the next one, please. And so this next one, I immediately can see I've already changed the sky color. I've gotten a lot more color definition on the house. You can see I already started putting on those stupid siding lines there because I want to be able to make that siding pop out. The awnings, they're starting to get some color, but they're just a quick wash. So basically, it's just giving everything a quick second layer, nothing fancy.
Do you do that all at one time, or do you do that? separate days?
Well, that's a great question. And usually it depends on the subject itself. I would say in this picture here, this would be just one sitting. The first one I did in one sitting, the second one, after it all dried, I came back and did it. So it probably is a couple hours. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please, Debbie.
These are acrylic?
These are all acrylic. Yep, yep. So here you can start seeing I'm working from top to bottom, but I can work from bottom to top too. It's a house, let's start at the roof and work our way down. You can see I've started putting more of that under siding in there, getting a little shadow so that roof top kind of pops out at us. More definition with siding up in the top attic area, the awning area with the front bedroom window and such, and moving my way down. So it doesn't look like I got too far below that front porch ease at that point. But it's starting to feel like the Hill House already from what I saw.
Do you, oh, I'm sorry. Are you taking questions during, or should I wait till after?
Whatever you like.
Okay. I wondered, like, when you do the siding like that, those lines, how do you do them so straight, so precise and so straight? I mean, that like always drives me bonkers. You use a ruler. Okay.
I use a ruler and a pencil and I go line by line, just eyeing it up, hoping that by the time I get to the bottom, I don't have a really fat piece of siding or a really thin piece of siding. And if I do, I try to hide it. That's a challenge. So it all goes in pencil. And then that pencil line is going to have to be painted over with varying grades of darker colors. So it can give it kind of that pop out 3D effect.
The undulation.
Right. Okay, Debbie, next slide,
Amazing.
please. Sure. All right, again, you're starting to see more of that underside popping out. The shading that you have to put on there, it's not just one shade. You got the really darks up in the top section. It gets a little darker down towards one side than the other, putting a little more emphasis on the vents and such. And I can't see it because I have the gallery picture here, but the request that they gave me was to have the side houses there, but don't define them too much. We don't want them to pop out. So I will build onto them a little bit more as we see through the progress shots, but they're not going to be where I put my main focus. And that's a challenge too, because if you're like me, you just want to get every little stinking detail in every part of that picture, and I had to resist. This part of this picture also is showing a little more work on the front porch overhang. You can see the yellows are popping out more and more. The dirty shading underneath that front overhang probably needs a little power wash, but that's okay. We can make it the way we want it. All right, next slide, please. All right, so now you can see quite a difference. I've gotten a little tired with that large upper body of the work, and I wanted to get some more detail down in the porch. So I knew they had some chairs, the doorway, a pot on the stairwell, it's either the mailbox or the house number, the windows. Even that little side trellis, that one was an interesting part of the porch because you get just a hint of light coming through there, but it's all that, hex patterns. And how are you going to get that with an angle where it's only maybe an inch wide and it's on its side to make it look like you have light coming down? Well, you can see how I started it, and as we progress, you'll see a little bit more of that comes through. And anyway, it's starting to get more fun for me at this point where details will pop out. The top awning is popping out a little bit more so. All right, next slide, please. Great. Okay, so again, this one, you can see there's a little work on the left side of the house there. I'm putting a little more shadow into the overhang to help get that 3D effect. There's the siding on the porch wall itself, and the highlight. See that front chair right next to the trellis thing. You see how I'm letting the sunlight come in on that side, but the other two in front of the front window are more in shadow. Not a harsh shadow, but just that subtle sitting on the front porch shadow. Couple more bits of shadow up in the top buttress there. The house number underneath the awning, right above the mailbox. I'm getting into that. And so we're starting to move into the tightening up area. And here comes the rain now. All right, next slide, please. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
You were working directly from a photograph or from an image on your computer?
Yes. Yep, one picture, one photo.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an 8x10 photo, and I did an 8x10 painting of it. So that helps because then, perspective and sizing and all is already done for you. Just try to match it up in that section.
The scale.
Yep. So here, again, I spent a lot of time on that front porch because that's going to be the first thing you see. When you walk up to a house, you're going to see the porch and it's going to welcome you. The pots there, I'm trying to get a couple of those prepped up. And I think I said there's a little work on the right side house. Again, not a lot, but just enough that your peripheral vision sees there's a house there and it's anchored. So you don't have to do a lot of work with it. I'm defining the yellow fabric a lot more so because those are like canvas awnings, not the metal awnings. And so I wanted them to kind of feel breezy and sunny and such. The bushes out front, doing a little work with those, and also to the neighbor's house side on the left. Once you start getting that greenery in there, it's really going to start to come to life even more. Next slide, please. All right, now I don't like doing a lot of gardening, but I plant flowers pretty well in paintings here, and it's amazing how just that little bit of red in that flower pot just like boom pops out at you. But I'm getting some more highlights on the greenery right in the front. Worked on some of the stairs leading up to the front door, and so at this point, my eyes are constantly jotting around just to see where else do I need to do some touch-ups. If you look up at the second floor window, you notice that the white has also a little purplish blue, like to the right of the awnings, and then there's that blue haze right up above it. Those little things there, I mean, that's what I saw in the picture. Now, I don't think there was any purple in the painting there, but someone always said if you put a little purple in shadow, that's going to help things pop. And it does. It really did. Subtly, but it did. So I try to work that in wherever I can. Next slide, please, Deb. Okay, okay, look, there's a chimney there. Also did some downspout working right there on both sides. Those can be a real bugger because you don't always plan for that when you're building your house. And afterthoughts then seem to be like, well, that looks a little too odd hanging way out over here or whatever. But you make it work. You go back and redefine things. I made that space above that second floor window a little bit less blue. It was too blue before. So you just adjust it and move it away. All right, next slide, please. All right, there's actually one of those little like riding chairs or it might have been a stable chair right by the front door. So I popped that sucker in there, put some more shrubbery right down in front of it in the pot that I had set up before. Worked on a little more of the step details and some plants on the left-hand side to kind of balance out that side. All that's left from this point was just to do a little more detail in the chimney. Again, it's not a focal point. It's just you want it there so your eyes can see it and says house, chimney. Okay, move on. And we just need to get down on the sidewalk and make that look like it's a nice sunny day and you're walking up to the Hills house. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, see the walkway. I also do cement work there. You can see the separations even in the walkway, and the last bit there that you know, when I first saw the picture, I can't remember if it had a flag. We'll see in the final product if it does, but to put a flag or any object right in the center of something you've already done is either crazy or it's meant to be. And it's like, do I take that big boy step and just plant it right in the middle? Because once you do it, you're committed and there's no going back. And how do I do a flag that's not, it's not just red, white, and blue, but it's red, white, and blue and maroon and a little bit of light blues in the whites, and it's wrapped around itself too. So I don't know. I haven't done too many flags, but I was pretty proud of that one. And her father was in the military too, so it was fitting to have that as well. But let's move on to the next slide there. I think it might be it. Yeah, that's it. So there we have a side-by-side comparison. And as I put in here, the client said she actually liked the painting more than the photo. It looked more like her home in the painting than the photo did. When she saw it, when I presented it to her, she had tears going, and then she gave it to her mom to have it hanging in the care facility where she was at for the last 2 or 3 years. Sadly, she did pass just last year, but they have that painting in their home. They've ordered numerous cards of it and that they send out to people for her mom's, you know, memorial service and things. So you know that it means so much to the family, and you know, that was it. So that's why I do these. They're fun. You know, they touch someone's heart. They're going to keep it forever. They're going to give it to their kids. That's grandma's house. That's my own house. Whatever, and they'll be loved. So that's our first one of the night. Any more questions about that one?
Nice job.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
I love the I don't know what the word for it is, the joist at the right above the flag that just like draws your eye all the way back in and then down, and you get that sense of that reflected light on the porch, you know, the breeziness, the summer feeling to it. And this has been interesting to watch these, to see, like, for instance, the siding, how it shifted from every progression photo that you showed us, from being kind of like not vague, but it gets clearer and clearer and softer, but clearer and clearer.
Yep.
A really interesting process.
Thank you. Yeah, if you see, Kelly, on there, the lines that I had initially put in, that I'd gone over and made them very defined, and then went back, and you see, you kind of break up some of those lines. Your eyes will just see, oh, they're siding, and it connects them automatically, even though there's nothing there. But it gives you that hint, because even if you look at the photo, if you stare at the left side of the siding, the lines disappear if you stare at it.
Right.
You'll see just like around the outside part, and only when your eye shifts a notch will it come back into focus.
Yes,
So,
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
I try to get the same effect.
I also love how you handled the shrubs, the bushes out front, because in the original photograph, you know, I think it's too much prominence, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
And the way you handled it, it's so beautiful. It's just, the house is the hero, you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, shrubs, they can do wonders for a painting. And don't be afraid of them. You can command a hedge pretty easily.
Okay, shall we
Lovely.
move on to the next one?
Sure, sure.
So where would you like to go next?
Let me see, which one did I send you? Just myself. Bear with me.
That's fine.
Let's go to Nano and Nana's house next.
All right, let's see.
I'm going to turn the fan on because it's getting a little warm.
Oh, now I should be able to get it to come up.
All right.
Wow.
Okay. So this also was another commission. A former coworker of mine who follows me on Facebook. She saw what I've done and she reached out to me. Her Nana was moving out of this home after about 50 years. Nano is no longer with us. But I think it's a house down in the South Hills area. It's nothing fancy, but it was a family home for many years, and it had a lot of great memories for the family. Well, she had to move out also. She was about 91, and the family moved her in with her daughter or one of the other relatives, and it was a hard move for her too. But she asked me to do this for a birthday coming up for her. So I said, okay, doesn't look too difficult. Until you realize it's a brick house, and if you're a detailed person like me, you're going to need to paint the bricks. Over 800 bricks in this stinking painting, just letting you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so.
It's incredible. It is
Yeah.
just incredible. I mean,
So,
the
thank you.
painting is better than the photograph.
It
Thank
is.
you.
The
Thank you.
clouds are like Renaissance clouds. I mean, the grass, all of it. It's
Thank you.
impressive.
Thank you. Well, why don't we jump in and see where we began? So you've got to start with the basics. And again, you just block everything in, get to understand where everything's at. And you can sketch onto your canvas all you want and get everything set. But once you start getting the paint on there, things shift, things move. So I don't worry too much about all that. I know I'll be able to tighten it back up with a couple brush strokes, but this just was blocking everything in, get some surrounding area details there. And so after that sitting, next slide, we move on to get some of your background in there, because if you get good background, your foreground will just push right out to you. So this one, we went 3 houses deep in the neighborhood. And yes, I could see those in the photo that she gave me. So I figured, let's get those in there. That's exactly what they would see if they were standing in the front yard looking at Nano and Nana's house. The clouds, I just got them started up there. And you can see on the canvas some of the hatches up and down with the gesso underneath. That's a prime example, prime example of what I meant as far as putting that stuff on and then sanding it and being careful, because you get some funky textures. It didn't really detract from the final product, but being very particular about these, I wish I didn't have that, cross hatching going on as my undercoat. But whatever, it is what it is. So you get some houses in there, throw in that big old tree, because it's going to be a prominent subject of the work when it's all done. And I think I did a little bit more on the house, just touches in shadows, but not really much there. So that was the second sitting. Oh, some housework over on the right-hand side too, from the house across the street. Okay, we can go to next slide, please. So working on foreground bushes and neighbors' homes. So all that means is I just threw some more dark and some green on these shrubbery out front, and I put a lot more time on the right-hand side homes, because again, I don't want it to be a defining item. I want it to be present, but not prominent. So it's in shadow, you got some shrubs, you got that thin spot of grass running through. A little work on the trees in the back to help. Someone okay? Was that a hiccup? Anyway, a couple more trees in the back just to push things forward. And I think that was all for that, unless I did a little more blocking in down by the garage door, because that's got some 3D effect to it. And you can just see, if you look very closely in the brick red area, do you see the lines that I started putting in there?
Mhm.
Okay, you can see them also in the underhang shadow all the way up near the top, just on the right-hand side. So that in itself, if you're doing the lines, you want to make sure everything is even Steven going up the whole way. And I think I came back in afterwards and did the up and down lines like a mason worker would do. So you would have this, not one on top of each other, but the step pattern. We go to the next slide, please. You can see I did a little more work on the underside. I put a little more wash on the under porch, the front door area, around the windows, more on the roof, because you want this roof to be gray, but sunlit gray, and have some texture, but not too much. I did some more work over on the neighbor's bushes there, and in the back, a couple more details. So it looks like those houses are in full sun with shadows, and the grass is nice and bright and green, and the trees are lush. Just it's a nice summery day in the South Hills. You can go to the next one, please. Okay, I think I had to put a big old wash down in the grass just to make it look a little more anchored. Again, details of the front window. They had those lace curtains, and lace curtains unlit in a room, in shadow, under an awning. They go in like 2 or 3 times. You're making them too light, and then you wash over it. Now it's too dark, and then they're too precise. Then you have to kind of fake it up a little bit, you know. Notice the underside of the porch roof, how you get that under reflection. I think Kelly, you were mentioning something like that on the other one. You know, it's a painted underside of a roof, and it will catch that glare from underneath. So you had to do that across that whole way, and that reflection actually casts light back down onto some of your details. I think that was about it for that session. Bingo. Anyone want to count the bricks?
Wow, that's amazing.
So that was probably a session that was 6, 7, 8 hours worth of just, well, let's do this color, that color, and you know, working. It's not a big difference in the colors of brick, but you got the dark, the reddish, the more ochre colored, and then you have the ones that are in sunlight, the ones that are not so much in sunlight, and those in shadow. And I don't like doing brick houses anymore after this one. So it gets a little annoying. But I also started cleaning up those windows right above, so you can see some reflection in there, but not too much. A little more work on the front door, the front porch, the steps. Maybe a little bit on that retaining wall coming away from the garage door. The garage door got some of the blocks on it. And bless you. And there's even a hint of what's going to be the little welcome pot sign right on the front walkway there. So that slide shows a lot of progress from where I had come from before. So from this point, it gets so much easier, I thought. Next slide, please. Okay. What else did I do here? I think I started doing some more brickwork in the shadows on the front porch, right in front, and started doing the work on the bushes. So that once I get those in there, that it's going to enhance that dimensional aspect, bringing it all the way up to the front of the canvas. Some work on the doorway. And doorways in shadow and regular doorways with that glass, those can be such a challenge because you want them to be see-through, but there's always going to be that little like glint or reflection of just something not really defined. And that really just makes it look like it's a glass door looking right through it. I'm getting the gutter work in there, soffit, fascia, the lines along the roof edge, the gutters, you have to hold your breath and just feather touch along as you're moving it. And then you're going to go back and do the correct on the sandwich. So it's kind of like an Eskimo pie or whatever. You're constantly going back and fixing the outside shell and then the inside and then the outside to make it look like it's even. Otherwise, you're going to have these little blobs, and they'll just draw everyone's attention to it. So, and the awning down near the bottom entranceway, that's starting to pop out a lot more too, with the shadows and such. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I also do iron work. So here we've added the porch ironwork lines and some more metal work on the doorway. You know, you have to have those black hinges in the doorknob, door handle. I think it was a wooden door inside, so you can almost see like there's that wood tone behind the glass. And that, you know, the normal X at the bottom part of the door, the screen door, just enough that it shows the hints of the cross hatching X and the box around that and the three-dimensional aspects to it. Let's see, I got the fence posts starting over there. What else did I do?
Would you say by this panel that the house is finished
No,
or no?
no. It's almost done. We're nearing the finishing line, Kelly. So we got the steps, I got the ironwork, I got the railing going down to the garage itself. I touched up the shutters, I believe, and worked on the welcome pot a little bit. And a little more highlight on those front bushes right at the front porch area. Next slide, please. Okay, now we got to put in the decorative rocks at the front porch area. And those were not difficult, not as hard as bricks, but still you're constantly putting one layer and then you go back and do another layer and then you do another layer. Then you just start playing with highlights here and there and fixing your shadows so that those shrubs, they pop out at you. They're one dimensional, but all the different highlights and the shadows and the blips and the blops, they just make it pop out. And, you know, I don't want to sound braggy, but I sometimes impress myself with when I finish one of those bushes and it's like, look at that thing. You know, it just jumps out at you. I should be a landscaper. You want to make them perfect looking, but you can't. You've got to have mistakes. Nature will make happy mistakes, as Bob Ross always said. And you've got to make them not so perfect, and then they'll look perfect. So that's the only way I could explain it. But anyway, we did the rocks. We start doing the line of bricks and whatever that is that's surrounding the rocks, retaining wall, bringing that around. Now you're coming up to the front where the person's taking the picture, and this retaining wall and the dirt and these little spirea bushes, no, arbor vitaes, are all in shadow, it's in sun, and there's something large enough that's causing the shadow down the front corner. But we're nearing the home stretch. I put a little writing on the sign. You can't read it, but it's supposed to say "Welcome to Nano and Nana's house" in real life. So I think we might have one more slide, and then it might be. Yeah. Okay. Now I planted the grass in the front yard. I finished the fence on the side yard. Did a little more work on the bushes. Did more highlights on those little bushes out front. They're looking a little dead. They're getting too much sun and not enough water, but you can see the detail in the dirt, and there's leaves and things in there because we're not perfect, but it's all coming together. You got the feeling that you can drop down onto the driveway, and you got those bushes down below there.
Also, like the very subtle but distinct detail that you put in the garage door with those, those like wooden panels. Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
That's so hard to do.
Awning. I mean, those are such very subtle color variations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kelly, that was very hard to do. Any of those where it's a detail on a white with subtle shadows and all, because you don't want to have just this like black shadow on a garage, because you don't have that much. It's maybe about 6 inches really deep between the brick wall and the doorway. And so that's not going to cast a huge shadow, but just enough of that subtle gray. And there's a little blue, I think I put right up at the top part because it just looked like there was blue there, But yeah, I think this is the last progress shot, and then we're at the final stage, the ta-da moment, maybe. No, yes, no, final touches, more final touches.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't sign it yet. So more final touches here, there, and everywhere. Just lawn corrections, bushes corrections, just corrections all over. I couldn't tell you where they were, but it's probably things like in the hedges where I thought way too many highlights. Got to pull some of those out, darken them up, more shadow. And
there's also a highlight in the glass now too, on the door and on the window directly above the awning. There's more highlights in the glass there.
Yep. These things will jump out at you as you progress. I think I put a little more work onto the back large tree too, some of the trees in the back, because I don't want them too dark. I want the lighter, as we know, distance to make them lighter, because you got the sky haze coming in. But it's so hard when it's that huge prominent tree just sticking right out to the roof of the house. I think that was the last one before the final. Yeah, there you go, finished product. So that was Nano and Nana's house, and they presented it to her on her birthday, and she also was speechless, tears, and the 3-year-old granddaughter was like, "Do you like it or what?" She couldn't interpret what the crying meant. So.
Aw. Now, Lance, did you take architectural rendering classes ever?
No, actually, Debbie, in junior high, we had to take different like shop classes. So it was metalwork, woodwork, and art and mechanical drawing. And you're only in there for whatever, a month or two. And I didn't enjoy any of those. I didn't enjoy my geometry class either, but all those things I can render with a paintbrush.
I just wondered because your renderings look so much like when I had classes where you would start with the blueprint And then you would just drop the image down from the blueprint and the way that, you drop the lines in and everything. I mean, it's amazing that you just do this freehand.
Mhm. This
Thank you.
one I have to say is really, really, well, I mean, I love the one you did of your family home and the one of Robin Hill. But this one I have to say is the tonation overall also makes me think of old Kodak photographs.
Right, or like the old postcards that you would
yeah.
see, like the coloring and everything. It's just,
Yeah.
Technicolor and the texture, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I miss those little Kodak islands that you
Oh, yeah.
film at that.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
For the sign in the front of the house, did you use a brush to do that or?
Yeah, yes, I did. And the size of the brushes are like, oh, hold on, I'll show you.
Yeah, let's see the brushes.
Okay, so here's a pencil. This is,
Okay,
So is that like a 00 or?
it's in the 0 range,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of them are 0s or 1s or whatever.
now I've always had trouble with the brushes just bending too much to get a nice line.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Me too.
And I work with them so much that they wear down. So I have some that are just nubbins, and that actually will work for me. You have to have such a feather touch,
Yeah.
and with me using such light washes on them, they it just works. I don't know how else to explain it, but I don't get the ones with a long brush at all. Those I've never been able to control.
I always find that on the really little brushes, it's very hard to get it to hold paint so that it either doesn't like gloop on
Yeah.
and a big smudge, or that it's too light and it seems like I haven't made any kind of mark. I find that very, very challenging.
I agree with you on that. And because I work in such light washes, those bricks on that house, one brick may have had 4 washes. You get a base and then another to kind of make it set, and then another to work on the left side, and then another to hit the right. When you have all that, then it's like the sun's coming in. Each of them has their own little definition. So maybe it's that, having the multiple washes that works for me.
When you're doing your washes, are you doing water washes or glazed medium washes?
Water.
Okay.
Some of them are just super, super thin.
So almost like a watercolor technique.
Yeah. When I did the Tippy Toe First Snow, when I painted that, the view out the window was an entire wall of winter tree branches and bark and stuff like that. But you don't see that during a snowstorm. And so I did all that, and then I took a light wash and went over it, and then another light wash and went over it, and that just pushed it back and calmed it all down. But those were like super, super thin, almost like painting with milk.
Okay.
It's that
Yeah.
skim milk almost.
Love it.
All right, so.
All right, where are we going next?
Why don't we go to my childhood home that Kelly already wanted to see?
Mhm.
All right, let me exit out of this one.
So Lance, what artists do you like? Like what artists throughout history stay in your mind as inspirations, or that you think about maybe they had done something, how they did things, or?
I didn't write all this down, Kelly. I didn't know it was going to.
Sorry. No pressure, no pressure.
I told you they'd ask you questions you weren't.
That's okay. I'll pull a few out that hopefully y'all know. back when I first started my the oil painting, I have some relatives up in New Jersey that they're art aficionados, and they actually are the ones that own Stable Friends, that I did a couple years back with the horse and the dog.
Mhm.
And they saw after a couple years how I was progressing and doing a lot of landscapes, and they sent me this book on the Hudson River painters, which basically were a group of painters from the late 1700s up until about early 1900s, when the camera started moving westward and bringing the images of the New World back to the East Coast. So those people that were doing these big paintings of the West and the untouched beauty of nature and such, they were kind of becoming like, we can get a photo. Look at this neat photo. It's new technology. But they painted a lot up in the Catskills, New York area, etc. But they also went all around. Albert Bierstadt, Frederick Church, Asher B. Durand, Thomas Cole, Worthington Whitridge. There's seascape people, there's mountains, there's they painted the giant sequoias. All those are very realistic, naturalistic paintings. And so those were a group that I fell in love with because of their sharing of the books and my understanding of kind of what it takes to do all that. There's actually a guy on Facebook that I follow who does Hudson River style painting, like he's reincarnated Albert Bierstadt or Frederick Church. It is scary good. And I can't remember his name right now, but I'll get it and share it later on. But he works in like little things like this, or he does massive ones that are, 4 feet by 6 feet or more. There's William Hartnett, I think, was a realistic still life painter. There was him, and he and Pito, I think. If you look at Hartnett and Pito, they did some of the same subjects. Both were realistic still life painters, but Hartnett kicked Pito's butt definitely in his ability to achieve that. Like, you can reach out and touch the violin. You can actually lift see the page lifting in the book, whereas Pito's was a little bit more crude. There's a guy right now in Sweden, Trolls Kirk is his name, and he's also on Facebook, and you'll see some of the things that I like. Very friendly, but just awesome natural painter, very realistic. He's done horses, birds, rustic barns, and things with just a very rustic flair, but very realistic, down to one of his latest ones of a log pile where you can just count every stinking piece of wood that's been cut for the winter, and it's not stacked up neatly. It is jumbled mess. And I'm thinking, how do you do that? So he's impressed me. And if you like that sort of thing, I think you will too. But he's got a really cool easel set up on the wall that it can move like this. He just sits there and moves everything around for him. And he's got a studio that I think we all would love to have. It's as big as the entire bottom floor of my house. But anyway, it's in Sweden, so maybe someday I'll visit him and see it. But does that answer your question, Kelly? Does that help? I hope it did. Also, I like my.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I like some of my relatives' paintings too. I had a cousin in Illinois, Laura, who was a professional painter, and I have 2 of her works here in my house upstairs. There's one of a basket of peaches that you could see the fuzz, and one of some flowers. that, you know, they're nice, but I'm not big on the flowers. And so I have that as an influence there. And anyway, so enough of that. Let's move on to the next house.
Okay.
There it is. Okay, so those that have lived in Moon probably drove past this house many times on Thorn Run Road. It's right across from what used to be the Sweaterlich Farm, which then became the Beaver Valley Health Center, which then became the Heritage Valley Health Center, which is becoming something else after that. I don't know. But anyway, this was originally the Charles E. Graham or Charles E. Graham summer home built back in 1911-ish. And his brother had a summer home just down Old Thorn Run, set way off. It's the black house that had a horse lot near it on your way towards Mooncrest. So they both, the brothers, summered in Moon Township and wintered down in Pittsburgh. Graham Nut and Bolt Company, which he was the president of, the building still exists right across from, it's right next to that, I think it's a Speedway gas station, and right across from the Silver Limousine on Neville Island. So you'll see it has a sign that says Graham Nut and Bolt. Anyway, that's the history there. My family moved into this house in 1970. So we lived in it for 50 years, the longest living residing family of that house. It's got a lot of history, and it's played a prominent part in the neighborhood, I would say. Well, last year when we moved my folks out, you know, it was tough for all of us, and I had always said I need to do a painting of the house even before they moved. And I asked my dad, what scene, what angle do you think would be good for it? And he said, do it like you're driving up ready to visit us. Coming up the driveway, what do you see? And I said, okay, that's a good one. Because any angle of the house, it's going to be a neat looking house, you know, but front on, you don't get the depth, you don't get the size of it, you don't get all the character. So anyway, I had taken tons of shots, and this was one that I think worked well. It really came together pretty quickly. I think you'll see, but it also was. It wasn't as difficult as some of the others because I almost didn't have to look at the photo so often. I knew this is how this went, this is how that went. So it was a lot more of just get the detail there, and the color should come in pretty easily. The trees around, those were pretty easy too. But I was really pleased how it came out, and love how the front porch just jumps right off the front part of the house, and you can feel like you can walk up to it. So why don't we jump into the progress shots and see how this bugger came together. All right, so that is just blocking things in. Let's get it all set up, and I think when you start off right, it comes together pretty quickly. It's an interesting angle. You get a lot of depth to it. You can see the character of both the side of the house, the length going over to the neighbors. I even have the neighbor's house in there because we knew them for the 50 years as well. And anyway, so that's just blocking it all in. Move on to the next, please. This one is just defining things a little bit more. And once again, it had siding that with the roller, I had to get those in there and make sure they were lining up right. But not only do you have them going this way on the angle, you have them also going the opposite direction down the backside of the house. And so that can create a little more of the challenge. But I threw some more of the shrubbery in there to kind of understand where things were laying, the neighbor's backyard. The chimneys got a little more detail right from the start because I didn't think I needed to play around with those too much. But windows really, really dark, really pronounced. at this stage. But I think we can move on to the next slide, please. Oh, okay, already. This just shows the roof got some work, got some lighting up at the top. The house is white, but there's all those kind of dirty underhang shadows and grays that show up, just the shadows underneath the front porch. Even the windows, I just went at them really quickly and tried to lighten them up, put the little window divider, get some impressions of curtains in there. The side, I think the time of day when the picture was taken had to have been maybe mid-afternoon. So the sun would have been coming in more from the left side. So that side, you know, people say don't work with white when you're painting. Well, it's a white house. Okay, so I'm going to have to use white, but you can use the whites and the grays and the whites and the browns and the whites and the parchment on the front part to get the darker or the shadows. And how do you make white brighter? Well, don't add yellow to it, okay? Because then you'll get lemon white, and you don't want that because then it just looks alien. But if you use a nice light pink, that's what I use on the left side of the house to kind of make it pop a little bit more. The roof gable there, and then the whole side got that white and pinkish color too. It's very, very light, very subtle. May have a little parchment also in there, but it helps to pop things out if you're looking to have that variation and choice of mixing colors. Worked on the neighbor's house. You can see a little bit there. They always had the most beautiful pink azalea that would just bloom like gangbusters there, and still to this day does. Their house also was white, but again, I don't want them to have a prominence in the picture. Just a hint that they're there. I recognize you. Now get off stage. In the back, I threw in the little shade, the shed beyond the back porch, and the back trees. We had this house was surrounded by some of the tallest trees. At one time, you could hardly see the house. It was so protected. But over the years, lightning has struck about 5 of the trees in the yard and took those out. There was a taller tree where that back pine tree was, and that got hit by lightning and killed. They just recently took out the 2 pine trees on the left side of the house because the new owner's photo was too close. And this one in the foreground is going to be a nice pine tree, I think a ponderosa. But getting more of those in there, playing around more with the windows and the definition and such. And I think we can move to the next slide. Okay. So this is where you kind of get a little more brave. You're comfortable with the house, all the details of it. You can still go back and play around, work a few things that are out of sorts. Throwing in a lot more of the background trees. Remember, lighter in the back, darker in the front. And I got the pine trees all greened out on the left side there with the neighbors' backyard hill bushes and trees that also were back there to kind of fill in their space. But you have this massive elm limb that then just juxtaposes right across everything, and kind of like that flag, but 10 times more anxiety causing. You just put that sucker in there and don't look back, just get it in there. And as soon as I did that, it's like, oh, this is going to look really great once I get the green in there, and the house will just push back so nicely. So as I say in the slide here, watch how things change drastically with the next shot. Drum roll, please.
Wow.
You know, it's like going from winter to spring, right? I feel I have to go get the lawnmower out and start mowing that front yard again. But really, once the limb got in there, I couldn't look back, and it's just going to be a matter of filling in with the leaves. And even with that one branch that drops down in front of the house, all the work that I spent getting that part of that house shaded and detailed and just fitting right, you have to remember what's going to go next in the painting. So you can cover your mistakes. You can remember not to put so much time in that one section, but sometimes you never know. You might want more of that house to show through the leaves of the branches. Anyway, I also, looks like I got all the rhododendron blooming on the front. And those bushes, before my brother trimmed them out with the military haircut, they bloomed like that. They were full pink bloom. And the ones on the left, my dad planted a red, white, and blue set, like a flag coming up. So you have all that. You have the weeping pine branches, not your typical like sticky outy left and right. These are the soft, hanging down needle type things. You just have to be very careful and use a tiny brushes. Again, 2 or 3 times going back and forth on these, so you get the base, the medium tone, and then just the slight highlights in there. But beyond that, worked on the grass, so it looks like, you know, there were the mow lines, the welcoming little steps, and the railing, the lamp. More definition on the plants back there by the back room window on the right, the hedges, the lily of the valley that he planted around the trees, the pine trees back there, and just the plantings that are along the driveway at the elevated beds going back towards the garages. I think that was one of the last progress shots I had on. So this one really didn't take too long, maybe about 40 hours to do, which isn't that long for a house painting in my world. But it progressed. There we go. So that was it. And I did not give this to my parents because the realtor actually did a commission and had somebody else do it to their surprise. And they invited me into their den and said, look what we got. And there's this 18 by 20 painting of the front on of their house. And it's kind of like, who told them they could do that? You know, I was jealous and whatever, but I'm glad they have it because it's there in their new residence. They can see it. It's a remembrance. But I gave them a print of this one, and this one I'm keeping as the times we spent there. So who knows who'll get it, you know, after I'm all done with it. But hopefully someone in the family will take it over. But it was a thrill to see that it got the people's choice, and I thank everybody that voted for it, because that meant a lot to my folks to see that as well.
Just
So-
beautiful.
Thank you. Anybody on the call that was there?
Well deserved.
Thanks.
Yeah, I
Carol,
was there.
Branch in the
There you
front of the house really makes the whole house pop out.
what'd you say the first part?
The branch in the front of the house,
Yes,
foreground branch, man, that really makes the whole house pop out.
doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's once that went in, I was committed, you know, it's a do or die thing, and you just have to make it work. And elms, as you know, they're not broadleaves, they're those little ones. So you have to just be multiple times, different layers, just enough. But that was a fun one to do.
You got the doghouse in the back.
The shed,
Oh, it's a shed.
yeah,
Oh,
otherwise
it's
that'd be a
big.
giant dog.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that's
All
where
right.
we used to keep the lawnmower until I moved it into the garage.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So shall we go to our last final presentation? Anybody bored yet? No?
No.
No?
No,
Oh, good.
no.
Yeah, this is
Good.
Oh,
Keep it coming.
All right, this is fun.
all right.
It's very informative and interesting. Thank you for sharing some of your secrets with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, so I think you all recognize this little cabin in the woods. I've known about it since we moved there in 1969 and 70. Not here, but down the street, literally. And I used to frequent Robin Hill after it became part of the park. Kelly's mom used to teach art classes down in the basement, so we'd do things there. Another friend of the family who lived up near Hyde School, she worked in more of the nature side of things. So we would do the hikes down the paths, the switchbacks down to the river or the stream, then the oil wells, and we'd look for salamanders, and we would pop the June jewel weeds, and we would eat sour grass and learn about the pine tree out back. It's an American tree with the two white lines underneath. Is that hemlock? Underneath the little pine needle?
I
There's
don't
my
know.
arborist out there. I think anyway, that all these little things I can remember back then, the May apples, just lots of stuff. So it was a lot of great
May
memories.
apples.
May apples, right. So a lot of great memories. And I'd taken a lot of photos around Robin Hill and the log cabin and the little cottage out front. But there was one day a couple years back when I was just sitting out front waiting, probably for one of the West Coast Art League meetings, and the sun was just coming in, as you can see, just at a weird angle, and had these little blip blip blips on the house, just subtle enough. And I thought, okay, someday I'll do a paint of this. And this was the one that kind of surfaced out of all that I took. So why don't we jump in and see how this journey looks. Oh my gosh, it looks so bad, doesn't it? But you know what? Everybody's got to start somewhere. And so it's so crude looking with it all blocked in that way. But keep in mind, this is only 8 by 10, and that's a giant Georgian mansion. And I'm going to be working with lots of tiny little brushes. So be patient. We're going to get there. Anyway, this is just blocking it in,
And-
defining. Go ahead. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just gonna say, remember Margot's mom had the herb garden? There was the herb society, and they had that herb garden off to
Yeah.
the side.
Off to the right side. Yeah. They still have something there, but I think they made the more official herb garden down where the tennis court originally was, and then the amphitheater was after that.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, I forgot about the amphitheater. Yeah.
yeah, remember? Okay.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's just blocking it in, nothing fancy, just getting everything put where it needs to be put. So moving on to the next slide, please. There you can see I'm just getting a little more undercoat on the house, the roof, defining where the windows are. And look how blotchy it is, where all those little bits of sunlight look. It just looks weird. It just looked weird for the longest time, but that was all the forethought that you have to have. Like, how am I going to get these blobs of sunlight in there and make it look real? So I'm defining more on the roof. It was a slate roof, and I know they just put on a new one. I think I started defining a little more on those 4 chimneys, 2 of which will be, 3 almost, will be covered in branches and leaves and things. So really, there's only one that's going to be like, look at me, type of thing. Anyway, lots of details. Again, tiny brushes were worked on with all the shutter. Look at all those stupid little shutter lines that you have to end up doing. And they get smaller on the ones right towards the center of it. And all the fretwork on those windows. What was I thinking when I was doing this? Well, Let's go to the next slide and see if I've made any progress. Okay, it looks a little more anchored. The walls are getting a little more soft brick look. The roof is getting a little more slate look. The windows are and the gables, if that's what you call them, are popping out a little bit more. Chimneys are getting a little more attention, but I'm not touching anything around it, and I'm not messing with that front foundation plot at all. So staying on the house. Again, each sitting is going to be about 2 to 4 hours of just paint inside the lines, fix this curve, make those, look how wobbly those shutters are. They're all over the place. And you got to just tighten them up, work on the brown, go on the white. Next slide, please. Oh my gosh, if we could get closer, it would be more interesting. But look, again, you've got all the highlights of the sun coming in, hitting all those different details. It's not just white, it's gray, it's parchment, it's brick color and white on the white, it's the gray, it's the black. And now I have to put some shadows to make the sides pop out more, because you do have those 2 windows back there. Is that the kitchen? Yeah, that's the kitchen, isn't it? Yeah,
The
that's
kitchen was on the
kitchen
left.
windows in the back, yeah.
Mhm.
So, and look at that dang doorway. My goodness, we're getting some detail in there, because it's that Georgian style. You got to have that.
Mhm.
Anyway, my camera on my phone isn't catching all the details, but it's showing that you've got to get lots of blips of darks and lights in there, and it's going to just start popping pretty soon. Next slide, please. Okay. Once you get some of that green in there, did you feel how that house just went like, whoa, comes forward?
Mhm.
It lightens up the mood. It makes it feel like, oh, there's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And still a lot of refining on both sides. The brick color, I'm not going down to painting every stinking brick, but notice how we're getting a little more balance in the color. It's not dark red. It's not bright brick red. It's kind of in that brownish, tannish,
Mhm.
Lots of terracotta, all those different colors that you got to bring in. The work right up by the gutters, at the roof line. Have you ever noticed how it has all those little bits of woodwork? A little block all the way
Mhm.
across. That's
Dental molding.
insane. That's insane. One shouldn't have to paint it at this size of that detail. But anyway, we like having fun. Chimneys look like they've gotten a lot more attention. So we've got the lamp post in there on that side, and I totally forgot I needed to put one on the other side. So hopefully I'll remember to put that one in soon. But the trees right out front, those 2 there, that also was a commit to it and just don't look back. Those help to really give you, again, more perspective. The 2 pine trees in the back, I put those in and I just couldn't help but start playing with the highlights to see how are they going to look. So they had the most direct sunlight on them, and I'll probably lighten them as we go further in the progress. So let's look at the next slide and see what that shows. Oh boy, I really committed on that one. That there you get a lot more of the tree branches in, and you just start going boom, 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 boom with your greens. Not too much. Don't get crazy, because remember, you got 2 or 3 layers that you're going to have to play around with. And some of them are going to be dark in shadows. Some of them are going to have a little more lightness. And filling in more in the bottom section there's a dogwood in front of the house on the right side. And it may also be a dogwood on the left-hand side. I can't remember what it was, but there was some shrubbery there. There was some shrubbery off to the right side as well. So we'll just get some accents in there, and we'll start filling it in. I think I highlighted the trees in the back a little bit, but look how that roof is starting to look like, oh, there's a sky above it, and it's getting those lights, the highlights coming down, through the trees, hitting here on angles and such. And I think I put a wash on the driveway there just to give me that gray feeling. Having some apprehension about this ray of sunlight coming directly across, because that's going to be a focal point and a hard item to make look like real sun coming in from your right-hand side, because it's coming over your shoulder, basically. I defined the trees. You can see some highlights on those. The right side is more just, highlight almost up to the branch line, but the one on the left, it's got all the blotches and things on there because there's a tree that got blown down that was right on the corner where we park, and that came down several months back with the big storms they had there. And that was causing the shadows of that nature on the big tree to the left. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. The lighting that I use in my dining room here when I take these pictures, sometimes I'll shoot the light up to the ceiling. Sometimes it's a little more direct on it. This one, I could get more of the details by shooting up. So you can see the layers of the leaves are being built in. It fills in where it needed to be filled in, but you still want to keep some airiness to it. Some of them are darker. That's just the way they were. The house tone you can see is balancing out even more. All the details of the window shutters, they've all been corrected. The door has been corrected as far as you don't have any of these little like white blips hanging off to the side. The highlights of the sun are coming in more and more. They look less weird than when they initially started. And the roof was too light for me, so I had to darken it up. Sometimes you go back and you're reworking the whole thing again. I know in this particular session, the left side of the roof, you have that room. There isn't a window where that lamp is. That's that side room that we hang the paintings in. It's strange how that one doesn't have that much depth, but the one on the left side where the kitchen is has more depth. And I can't remember if one sticks out more than the other, but I bet it is that same way. But that was something I had to go back and rework and play around with things. Again, the highlight colors, not a lot of white, a lot of the pink, the ochre colors, like burnt sienna. What else? The parchment color, and then there's even yellows that I'll mix in with it. The sunlight coming in, I also had to get on the bricks. That was a different blend of colors than what you'd have to use on the roof. So, but now we can see Mr. Detail go with the brickwork in that center island. And I think I said I'm tired of bricks, but yet I keep coming back doing it. When you have something that close to the foreground, you have to do a detail. Otherwise, it looks like you're kind of giving up on the process halfway through it. If you're defining this house so specifically, you dang well better make some bricks look like bricks out front. Okay, so you're committed. But those were hard to do. I think I did 4 or 5 layers of color for these bricks, going back and forth because of this stupid cross beam of sunlight that's hitting it. With that, you can see on the left side, you have kind of an offset lighting hitting those at that corner. And then it gets a little more in shadow, and then it's like, boom, sun ray, and then goes off to shadow. So let's watch and see what we do with the next one here. Oh, I planted a garden. Look at that. So the garden actually was not difficult to put in there. As I've told you before, it's just a lot of just get your plants in there and then play with your highlights, come back. put a little more brightness over here on the left-hand side, because, that's where that beam of sunlight is hitting. And, but don't put too much there, because you don't want to just have it screaming, saying, look at me, and not look at the house behind it. I define more of the tree. I love, and again, I'm not trying to sound braggy, but I love how I got the sun highlights on the tree bark going all the way up into the foliage on both sides, so that it looked like it's coming in broken and natural and not on purpose. And that is so hard to do.
There's, I'm sorry, I was just wanted to say the tree branches, the tree on the left and the branch that hangs over top of those upper windows, that really gives that one more additional depth of field.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
you get a sense of space
yes.
of the height of the house, the height of the tree branch, and the space between the tree branch and the roof itself. I
Mhm.
mean, that really does create this, like, you come in on the driveway, but then you see the house, but when you take it all in, it just kind of, it draws you into an atmosphere that kind of just surrounds the house, like its own special atmosphere. This has been very interesting to see this progress, not only of each painting within the painting, but from one painting to the next.
Well, I'm glad you've been along for the journey.
Thanks. This has been it's really interesting. Sorry to
Thank
keep interrupting. Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. But in the brickwork, you can see here how you have on the right-hand side, and this again was so challenging, because you want to have definition of the bricks. You can see definition of the bricks in real life, but yet they're muddled together a little bit because you're on the curve and they've got that side lighting. Then they start coming into a little more detail, but not completely, because they're broken up. They're not perfect bricks. And some are filled with dirt and moss, and some are buried underneath the asphalt a little bit. And then as you circle around to the center, boom, you get hit with that sunlight. Like, what am I going to do now? Do I use orange? Are they going to go all yellow? No, they actually in real life have a cast of bluish green and pale yellows and siennas and stuff like that, until you just creep around and they kind of gray out and get into shadow as you go over to the left. So those bricks were just as difficult as the detail on the house. And I did more swearing on the bricks than I probably did on the housework. But then you have the sidewalk that encompasses that roundabout, and like, what color is the driveway? Is it gray? Is it blacktop? Is it, you got the sunlight coming in? So you have the indirect lighting hitting the left-hand side, which is different than what you're getting in the right-hand side, and or left and right. Sorry, I had to switch. So all those things I kept reworking probably 2 or 3 times till I felt I was getting it. There's actually some turquoise mixed in with the grays on the right-hand side of the gray driveway there. You probably can't see it, but it's in there. And anyway, other
Is
than
that
that, say again?
quinacridone turquoise?
It's cheap. On,
Quinacridone
it's
turquoise?
cheap on sale turquoise.
I like the way the driveway color also picks up the roof.
Okay.
Yes.
And
yes.
kind of like, it just goes so well. I mean, it's just beautiful, Lance.
Thank you. So that was, I think that might be it, or maybe we have one more
Let's
to
see.
show the final.
Nearing
the finish line. Okay, so I'm still refining. So I think I put more time in on the bricks. Make the indirect lighting a little more. Sunlight is such a fickle thing. You want it bright, but you don't want it too bright. But you have to have it bright enough. And and hitting in just certain spots. You need to go sit there in that spot and look at that place in those bricks in that evening sun, and you'll see all the variations that hit.
Mhm.
All right, I think one more slide is finished product. There we go. Yeah, so it was a fun one, but it nearly got the best of me midway through, just with all this the tiny work on that house, because that is hard on an 8x10. I'm wearing 2 sets of glasses normally when I'm working, and I can't see without it. The lines will be very messed up, but I'm pleased with the final product, and glad you all liked it as well. And this has been a fun share event.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Lance. It was so enjoyable to see all of the different steps of all of them.
You should be really proud of your work.
Thank you. I am.
And the
Yeah.
patience
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
It's
You know what I see?
I mean, that
Oh,
one
go
at a
ahead.
time. Who was first? Was that Marianne?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like,
Linda?
yeah, honestly, Lance, kind of having the opportunity to be inside Lance's head for like an hour. It's really interesting, the process, but in the end, what I really see is how much love you have for your subject matter. It really comes off in the painting. So
Yes,
Mhm.
that's a good point. And
Yeah.
I think that comes through in the final product, like with
Yes.
the houses that people get,
Mhm.
they recognize it. All the memories of that home come flooding back when they see that. And I almost feel like as I'm going through it,
Mhm.
it's coming from here, and
You can, I feel it when I see it, when I got to the opportunity to see it up close, at the gallery, I see it.
thank you.
Mhm.
I
No,
think
you
it's
go
nice
ahead.
too. We were trying to come up with what exactly Lance was going to focus on, because he has all of these wonderful architectural paintings, but then he also has all of these beautiful wildlife paintings too.
Right.
So, we played around with, should he show, some of those as well, but then we were thinking maybe split that off into another session.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then we could see how exactly he does all of that, the fine feather work and all on the birds, and some of those
Yeah.
other things. But just
I-
seeing the 4 different buildings and how you handled each one of them, and the different surfaces, and looking at the 2 that were brick and the 2 that were siding, and it's been great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to see a presentation about the wildlife. I was thinking that actually today while I was painting. I would like to see a
Mhm.
similar presentation. I loved this as a show and share,
Yeah.
and really, really interesting, very inspiring. And as I said earlier, I really enjoyed seeing how each painting, how your process changed within each painting, and my mom would say, oh, just suggest the bricks, or just suggest. And the thing is, like, you kind of can't do that until you paint every brick. And then once you know how to paint every brick, then when the sunlight comes in or the bricks are broken, then you can use that. But it's like, I think you from watching this presentation, you really have to do like every single step, and there's no cutting corners. There's just no cutting corners. So I'm looking forward to seeing the one about the birds and the wildlife.
Cool.
Mhm. I
Thank
was
you for
wondering, Lance, could you show me what you do with the mirror?
What do I do with the mirror?
Yeah, when you were talking in the beginning.
How you set it up so that you can see the painting. And
Oh, well, Debbie, if you pull the picture back
Okay.
up that I sent,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the corner. So I'm sitting there, to my to my right, to my left is my table of paints and wish-wash can, coffee or whatever beverage, and just all my instruments there. With
Yes,
my,
you can see the canvas here set up.
right, yeah, the canvas and the easel, I'll just push forward or back, and I'll usually have it maybe about 5 or 6 inches from my face as I'm working on it. And that's because I have short brushes, but all around me, you can see there, I'm working on the Taj right now, and I'll show you a progress shot of it. But I have a full photo blown up of the Taj there. But I also, for very detailed work, I'll have different sections of the picture, and I just tape them up onto some foam core and until I'm all done. And those I can kind of duct tape up to my easel or to the mirror. I may even at the same time have the photo pulled up on my laptop, which is about what, 7-8 feet away from me, blow it up to 200 or 300% of the section I'm working on.
Yeah.
It works very well with the birds because then I can get, a really different, the true color of the photo versus something that comes out of a color printer. You get the true definition of color that way. But that's when I'm doing like, okay, which one, and have the magnifying glasses, and it's comical probably. But I just sit there and I can just look like this. Okay, I can see it, and then I'll go back, and I work with one bulb.
Okay, so you leave the canvas on the easel. You
Yes.
just move yourself to look in the mirror.
Yeah,
I was thinking you picked up the easel somehow and put it in the mirror.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because you're sitting back in the corner.
Yeah.
And you just look like this. Okay.
Oh,
And as you're looking there, your picture is looking like it's pushed further back.
got it.
It's really
Okay.
hard to explain until you just sit in a corner
Yeah.
next to a mirror and then look at, put something in front of you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I understand now.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
thanks.
It really helps with showing mistakes, showing areas that need to be corrected. Kind of like another tip Kelly's mom gave me was for contrast corrections, and you take the little red see-through paper,
Yeah.
not tissue paper, but I forget what it'd be called, not like a plastic, and you look through
It's like a
that.
transparent paper, transparent wrapping paper. I always think of them being used for Easter baskets.
Yeah.
Cellophane.
Cellophane.
Cellophane, thank you.
You look through that, it has to be red, and it gives you you can see the contrast, the brights and darks, and everything else kind of washes out, it seems.
Oh, wow.
So that might be a technique that might work, with some of your abstracts that you're doing to try something even a little different. Not that
Yeah.
you do so many different things. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
one more thing.
Yeah.
But
I'm always experimenting.
sure. But this mirror thing,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could paint up in my studio now, because I've graduated from this. I like having the large ones there. I have a large mirror in the basement, but I don't want to paint down there because spiders and stuff like that.
So where did you learn about the mirror? Yeah.
A little dental mirror.
Yeah. Where'd you learn?
I think Nancy may have given me that tip
Oh,
years ago, and then I asked my dentist, could I use this? Or maybe she just said, have a little mirror there, like a handheld mirror, like this. Just have one of those.
okay.
But this was easier because then I could just do that, and I could see where everything was, keep it in your pocket. But I graduated. I graduated to big boy mirrors. Yeah.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Nice.
Thank you.
So if you're not doing branches anymore and you're not doing bricks anymore,
I'm still doing them.
Aluminum siding only.
Let me show you the Taj.
Yeah.
This was giving me some headaches. The sky, it's hazy. It's a hazy, hot, humid day in India. And the sky that I put in there initially was kind of a peachy maroon light color, hard to describe it. And then I started building my buildings. And then the building color, which is kind of a sienna, and then a off gray, pinkish white for the center Taj. I said, this isn't going to work. Everything's going to be all the same color. I got to change something. So I had to go back and repaint the sky 3 times to get it the right color.
wow.
And but once I did that, now the buildings are starting to just pop as I work on them. So okay, be gentle. It's just starting out.
Whoa.
Oh my.
Oh.
Wow.
Just starting.
Looks good from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, this is the back of the Taj Mahal. Did you know there was a back door to it? This is the
No.
back on the riverside.
Oh.
Because normally you'll see the fountains and the reflecting pool up front.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
the back. And the person that took it said that they took the shot where the guy was actually going to be building a third or a second Taj
Oh, wow.
on this other side of the river. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
thank you.
I see what you mean about the sky.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So,
Nice.
stay tuned.
How far do you think you are on it? Do you think you're like 50% there, 90% there?
Good question, Linda. I would say I'm probably only 40% there. Because the side buildings are taking so long to do,
Mhm.
and the Taj is going to be even harder to get that. But once I got that and the brick retaining wall, the foreground will go like real quick.
Mhm.
Because it's just river and bushes and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Nice.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
anyway, I'll keep you updated.